Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, talking up the Mason Blue from Michigan. We got James Yoder on the line talking up Michigan football. You can join James on his James Yoder's Michigan Football Report at Chat Sports. Give us a little bit more detail in regards to where people can specifically make sure that they catch your football report.
Yeah, so we covered for a second, but I think you said let me plug myself, so appreciate that, Mark. At James Yoder on Twitter, a new Twitter account. One of these crazy things, I got my actual name. I got rid of the middle initial somehow. Someone must have deactivated the real James Yoder. So I've got my name now, which is cool. Michigan Football Report YouTube channel, also at Chat Sports TV, YouTube, and then we're on podcast. During the football season, 3 to 5 episodes a week. Off season can be a little spotty. It's more based on the storylines, but have 10 episodes slated for the month of June. We get into rumors, we get into recruiting. The 24/7s and rivals of the world don't like us too much because we'll break the news that sometimes they won't, which is like guys about to transfer. So we try and be not your normal journalist out there at the Michigan Football Report. Have a few sources, and if we feel comfortable about a story, no matter if it's player leaving, recruit signing, whatever it is, we don't mind pushing forward if we feel confident that it's true.
And we are providing as many position previews as possible. And we have arrived at Michigan's running back core, which was Karan Higdon in 2018. He's, of course, moved on after 10 touchdowns on the ground, 1,100+ yards. Chris Evans, okay, what's the situation involving him? I know that there were academic issues. Some reports say he's gone for sure. Others say that he's still trying to work through those.
It's a situation I don't think anyone outside of Chris and his family in the Michigan football program has a great read on, right? So what happened, and it's really funny how this story caught a lot of people by surprise because it was one of these stories that broke on Twitter from unnamed fan, got some action, got a few hundred retweets. People were talking about it, but all the local journalists, all the 24/7 and rivals and blogs, they all said this is fake, this is totally made up BS. I didn't comment on it really because I didn't have a source, nor did I think that it was that big of a story at the time. Turned out to be true. Digging in from then, sounds like he had an academic cheating issue, right? And it wasn't the first one. So multiple academic cheating. I don't know the details of it, whether plagiarism or caught with a little crib notes under his hand. You never know what happened. So it's not a football thing. It's a university thing. And as of now, he didn't go to football. He didn't go to school at Michigan in the spring, but there is a path forward. I don't know what that path is to get back into the university's good grace, become eligible to become a football player. And it might not be till 2020. He's a true senior in 2019, so he could technically redshirt, academic redshirt, if you call it that, and leave the school. Now, there is also a little bit of rumblings and murmurings I've heard recently that he might just transfer, right? You never know. He could just transfer this year. Basically, the transfer portal is open season. You just got to make up an excuse why you're had a bad situation in your school, like most of these guys are doing, and you're eligible somewhere else. So keep an eye out for that. I'd be disappointed if that's how it played out. But will he come back this year? I think it's doubtful because I don't think you're going to come back from a multiple, offense academic suspension in one semester and be eligible. Maybe you will. I don't know. Usually those things are, if they go to this far, it's potentially a 1-year suspension, which would, if he gets back in the school's graces, he could come back for 2020. But I find it's highly doubtful 2019. Heard recently he took a unpaid position, spring football, for a local high school, coaching their running backs and wide receivers. So he's sticking in the area. So maybe that's an indication that he'll return in the future.
James, the off-field issues aside, your assessment of Chris Evans as a number one back, he always struck me as a change-up kind of guy, not necessarily the guy that's going to be a Karan Higdon that is going to be pounding a defense in the fourth quarter, but more of a change-up guy that's a little bit slippery, that's going to get you 10 or 12 carries per game.
Yeah, not a number one running back. And even if he'd returned and if he had won the job, I'd be fearful that this would be one of the more frustrating seasons from a rushing perspective that Michigan has had until they inevitably replaced him. And so I found Jim Harbaugh's recruiting of running backs and quarterbacks to be incredibly just underwhelming. This is year 5, and Karan Higdon was like a last-minute add he was committed to, I believe, Purdue when Jim Harbaugh came in, flipped to Michigan, but he wasn't like a big-time player. But he's got 4 stars like Amari Samuels and a borderline 5-star guy like Kareem Walker. Walker kicked out of school for, I don't know if they officially said that, but he had academic issues. He wasn't going to be able to play this year, so he went to, he went to a community college last year. Now he's going to transfer up to Mississippi State. He was the famed stolen from Urban Meyer, #1 running back in the country in the 2016 class. Flamed out, didn't seem to have much talent. Amari Samuels, the next class, 4-star, never made an impact at all. Ended up being a character guy, had a felony charge, and is going through court proceedings. He's not going to be at school at Michigan, going forward. And then Chris Evans, of course, was seen, got out of the gates against Hawaii his true freshman year, scored a long touchdown. People think this is like the next star, but I think he could be better utilized as a wide receiver out of the backfield in this new offense than he would be taking 15 carries under center. So Christian Turner is a player that redshirted last year that some people are high on, had a really great play on like a jet sweep against Florida that got called back because he stepped out of bounds right as he's making the corner, but showed a lot of speed. And then people are excited about Zach Charbonnet. Charbonnet, I've heard it pronounced both ways. I think it's Charbonnet, actually. Top 50 player, came in early, which is awesome, in January, but also came in early with an injury, had to get surgery. So no spring practice for him, which is a big bummer because I think he could have solidified his spot in the rotation, maybe the top 2. So there are concerns, I think, that he might not even be healthy for this season, but we'll see how he produces through this year. But if not for those, if Christian Turner doesn't turn out to be a star and Zach Charbonnet is injured, Mark, I mean, you're looking at True Wilson, a 4th-year walk-on, as the guy getting carries. And he, was the #3 guy last year. And he's a poor man's Mike Hart, like undersized, will sacrifice his body to make a block. But if he's got to be taking 15, 20 carries a game, you're looking at 2.5 yards a carry once the defense gets a read on him.
Yeah, so we got Charbonnet coming out of Los Angeles at almost 1,800 yards his senior year in high school as a true freshman, 13 touchdowns. Turner, so if I recall that play that you mentioned about Turner stepping out of bounds, there was still no score in the game. It might have been Michigan's first possession.
Yep.
Comes around the right corner and could have been a huge play, would have been like down inside the 5-yard line.
Yep.
And obviously Michigan got railroaded past that 41-15, so you can't blame it on that, but you get the early touchdown. Maybe it's a different game, but obviously all sorts of defensive stars and Karan Higdon out of that game against Florida. So yes, the running back position could be this could be a good reason why Michigan throws the ball as much as is anticipated as well, with the lack of running backs here.
It certainly is a precarious situation for them to be in. I look back, and now Michigan's got a new guy in the basketball side with Juwan Howard that people are excited about. And I kind of think back 4 years of where I expected Michigan to be going into year 5. I expected them to have a good quarterback room, and maybe they do now, but it's taken a lot of average quarterback play, specifically 2016, 17, 18, to get there. And Jim Harbaugh still hasn't had one of his recruits be a starting quarterback. I mean, you've got a 5th-year transfer. You've got a Brady Hoke kind of 3-star throwaway in Willen Spate. I mean, no offense to Willen Spate, but he wasn't highly recruited by any means. Then you've got John O'Corn, a transfer who dabbled in that. And then you've got Brandon Peters didn't work out. Shea Patterson transfer from Ole Miss. So 0 quarterbacks that went out. And
Jake Rudock.
Yeah, Jake Rudock was in year 1 and 15 coming into that 5th year. But now running backs are kind of the same thing. Wide receiver, he's surprisingly recruited pretty well, and you've got a stacked house of a junior in Donovan Peoples-Jones and 2 redshirt sophomores, and Tariq Black and Nico Collins. So those guys can be around for 2 years, maybe even 3 if a couple of them went 5, which is unlikely. But I think in general, running back, running back, quarterback has been underwhelming from a recruiting and talent development perspective based on expectations.
All right, folks, the insight, the information, the perspective is obvious. Please join James Yoder from Chat Sports on his James Yoder's Michigan Football Report. And of course, lock it in here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Share the videos, like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you think of Michigan's running back position in particular. also what you believe Michigan's going to finish this year. There are all sorts of projections, and we will talk with James at a later date on his thoughts and expectations for 2019. James, we appreciate you doing some heavy lifting here, getting us started on our position previews.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Looking forward to it, and have me back whenever you want to talk some more Michigan football.